Greetings, colleagues. My name is Samuel Nicholson Jr., and this is my seminar presentation 3 for my Practicum 2 class. As it relates to my Practicum topic, it remains the effect of compensation management on employee performance at Prudential Management Firm. My Practicum form. No, the productivity in a private sector is actually broadening my experience, and hence internship has proven to be more beneficial because I believe I was able to put into practice all that I had learned in this degree program. Now the location of my practicum. Currently, it was at the Blake and Blake Enterprise Limited. That is a consultancy firm here in Belize City. They were contracted by Prudential Management Firm, so my on-the-job site will be Prudential Management Firm. Now let's talk about the focus or the rationale of the practicum. There are expectations that both employers and employee expect of each other. Let's start off with the employer's expectations of employees. They expect that employees would be self-monitoring, they will have self-development, that they will adhere to rules and regulations, which having done all this will actually increase productivity. On the flip side, you have the employees' expectations. Now, they believe that management should provide the necessary tools and equipment for them to get their job done properly and effectively. With that said, they are also looking to have fair compensation. Now, the justification of the practicum. No, I think this practicum will serve to provide insight into the impact of compensation on employees' performance at the company PMF. It will also serve as a knowledge base for a comprehensive look into the lapses in the management of compensation at PMF, and these findings could also serve as a reference source for further research into the field of compensation for future researchers. Now, for my practicum objectives, I've divided it into two sections. I have my general objective and I have my specific objectives. Let's start off with my general objective, and that is to determine the effect of compensation management on employee performance. So that is my overall objective. I've narrowed it down to specific objectives, and these include: one, to determine the importance of compensation management on employee performance at PMF. Two, to identify the compensation packages available at PMF. Three, to investigate the problems and challenges associated with compensation management at PMF. And four, to identify other forms of compensation and to also recommend ways of addressing challenges that the compensation management at PMF would recommend. Now, while at the practicum, I encountered many issues, but the two main problems I like to tackle are as follows. The first one, there was no defined wage bands. It has become increasingly important that employers have rational explanations for why they have chosen to pay their employees a certain rate, and salary ranges help an employer to do this. But I did not find any at PMF, so that is one of the problems I'm finding. And part B of that is the levels are defined as per the chart below, but no salary band ranges. So basically they had something in place, but as it stands, it was not effective any at all. As you can see here, this is where the salary bands are in place, but look at it. Look at the tables. It says, do you think that the wage bands are linked to the levels in the table? How? No, it's not evident. So basically, does the table serve any purpose? In truth, no, it doesn't. And this is one of the problems I'm trying to fix, or I will remedy when it comes to my recommendations. The second part of the problem is the standard appraisal system requires review and improvement. So they have an appraisal system in place, but what they have is not effective and is not up to date. I believe that there is still improvement that we can add to it. The first part, what is in place does not align the company objectives or goals to each position. So the employee do not really know how what they're doing are in alignment with what the overall objective of the company is. Part B, the cascading and sharing of the deliverables is not done. There's nothing present, there's nothing evident to show this. And three, there's no focus on employee development within the appraisal system. And we all know happy employees will lead to productive companies. So this needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed fast. Now, being that I've found the issues, now I need to go and hear what other people are saying. So that is where my literature review come in. I've condensed it, so I'll be going through it because this will help me and help my audience realize the importance of compensation and in relation to the salary bands and so forth. Let's start off with compensation. What is compensation? Milkovich and Newman 1999, Chabra 2001, Baker 2002 states that all forms of financial returns and tangible services and benefits are a part of employees' benefits that they get, and this is what employees will receive as part of an employment relationship. The Journal of Global Business and Economics 2010, they also state that the combination of all cash incentives and the fringe benefits mix that employees receive from a company which constitutes are a part that constitutes individual total compensation. Now, why have compensation management? Why is it? What is it, and why is it related, or how is it related to employee performance? Now, Baker 2000 states that performance measures are selected and based on two criteria: one, alignment with the organizational objective, and two, the controllability by the employee. Now, when we relate the compensation to employee performance, Xingrang and Chinwei 2012, Mason and Barrett 2006, Ines and Pedro 2011, Dennis and Mikkel 2011, they all state that it's important to have compensation, and it's important as it relates to employee performance because it has been found that there is a significant relationship between the compensation and employee, not only employee but organizational performance. Now, the types of compensation packages, these include direct and indirect compensation, and this is according to Dessler 2011. He divided into two forms. Let's first tackle the direct compensation. Now, this includes direct cash benefits, which includes pay, whether it be monthly, bi-monthly, or weekly, or it could also include stock bonus or ESOs, which are also referred to as executive stock options. Now, the indirect compensation. Now, Armstrong 2009 and Dester 2011 both state that indirect financial and non-financial payments employees receive for continuing their employment. Also, it can also be elements of remuneration given in addition to the various forms of cash pay. So the indirect compensation will not be the monetary form. It could be other things that they receive in addition to the cash payment. Noe et al. 1996 also states that as it relates to indirect compensation, it facilitates its recruitment effort or it influences the potential of employees coming to work for a company, meaning it's important to have indirect compensation as this is an added motivation for employees to want to go to work and will carry out the work efficiently. Now, there are some challenges associated with compensation management. Aswat Papa 2007 states that it's a lack of participation in indirect compensation. Uniformity of benefits fails to recognize workforce diversity, meaning that it doesn't take into play, let's say, culture, traditions, so forth, stuff like that. And also, the uniformity leads to administrative executive decisions, which can be a problem at times. No, we need to define pay bands. Like I said earlier, remember, I'm looking up this lit review for pay bands, as that was one of the issues I encountered at my job site, my practicum site, PMF. So let's hear what others are saying about pay bands. The Rochester Institute of Technology 2016 states that pay bands set and rank jobs by experience, education, and responsibility within an organization. The HR Council of Canada 2010 states that pay structure reviews and places emphasis on pay scales or wage bands through participation, and this was found out via surveys from particular companies. Williams, McDaniel, and Engel in 2006 found that employees felt more satisfied with their pay level when they had 1. Positive perceptions of pay for performance, 2. Positive perceptions of their job design, 3. Larger base pay, 4. Larger pay increases, and 5. Perceptions of pay fairness. And this goes back to one of my expectations of what employees they actually expect from employers, right? Fairness. Now, Henderson 2003 states that performance-based reward plan can be tied in specifically to the outcomes the organization sees as profitable. One oversight businesses regularly make is setting performance targets too low. When you do this, employees are not motivated and this can become an issue. Another basic mistake is for businesses to utilize the wrong measurements in deciding a worker's performance. Again, this could cause more harm than good when you make that such a huge error. Now, let's talk about the performance appraisal system. This is where the lit review for this comes in, as this was the second issue I encountered at my job site at PMF. Brumbach 1988 cited in Armstrong 2000 that performance can be actions as well as their consequences. Behaviors originate from a performer and convert performance from a concept to an act. So basically, these people need to know what they're graded by, how they're graded, and why they're being graded. And this is where the performance appraisal system comes in. Now, Grote 2002 and Carroll 1996 both describes performance as appraisal as a formal management tool that helps evaluate the performance quality of an employee. So this is very important. As long as the employee and the employer know exactly what needs to be get done and how they will be assessed in this performance appraisal, this should lead to productivity in an efficient manner. Now, balance scorecard. This is very important, and I decided that this should be placed in my lit review because I wanted to know what other people think about balance scorecard, because this will be lead to one of the recommendations that will come out later on as I present. Now, why the balance scorecard? Why is it important for PMF? Well, quite frankly, I believe the balance scorecard is important for PMF because it will help to bring alignment between the company objectives and the individual employee performance. That is where we need to put that in play. Now, this is just an example of a balance scorecard. As you can see, the balance scorecard takes into account 4 major areas. These include financial, internal business processes, learning and growth, and the customers. Now, all of these must be linked to the vision and strategy of the company. In terms of financial, what does that mean? What is it referring to in the balance scorecard? Basically, all it's saying for the company to succeed financially, in this case PMF, how should we appear to our shareholders? In terms of internal business process, it's saying to satisfy our shareholders and customers, what business processes must we excel at? What should we what types of business processes should we be good at? In terms of learning and growth, to achieving our vision, how will we sustain our ability to change and improve? So for continuous growth and development, what do we need to do? And the final part, the customers, the most important part of the balance scorecard. The customers, to achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers? What message are we trying to send to them? How do we need to look in order to have our customers attention? Now, as it relates to The balance scorecard, we focused earlier on the visions and goals. Now the strategic visions and goals, they have competencies that needs to be aligned and that needs to that the employees need to have a full understanding of why their job are important to the overall company objectives. Because in truth, it is sometimes hard for employees to relate their work and performance to the organization's overall success. For example, employees in roles like cleaners, maintenance workers, retail, sales, and stuff like that. Most of the time, they carry out their job and they don't even know how instrumental that is to help bring out about the organizational success. Each individual, every aspect of the company should know what role they play in order to achieve organizational success. And this is where the strategic vision and goals comes in, because if that is in place, the employees' actions and behaviors will lead and will move towards organizational success. Now, as it relates to my practicum research, now having my objectives and all that in place, I had to figure out a way to come about with a methodology here at the workplace at PMF. So I dealt with random sampling, I had open lines of communication, I had structured interviewing, I administered some questionnaires. I also use the SurveyMonkey tool to help me to analyze and put all the data together that I found out. And Gary and Grunhall 2005 states that researchers commonly employ the use of both qualitative and quantitative methods in a single research, and this is what I did. I utilized both because I thought that both were extremely necessary in order for me to bring out the full instrumental details that I needed from my workplace at PMF. Now, the use of the questionnaires and interviews. The interviews were not really structured per se. These because I worked at PMF, it was basically, talking to certain employees, having a cup of coffee and sitting down, listening to certain things, conversations would come up. But I also had, in addition to those interviews, questionnaires, stuff that I needed, clarity for. In addition, and for the data analysis technique, I use the SurveyMonkey tool, and that is what grouped everything together for me to come up with the overall analysis of what my research was about. As it pertains to the questionnaires, what were entailed? Well, it was divided into basically three sections: the biodata, which included the age, sex, and department, and basically their length of service at PMF. The questions linking compensation, management, and employee performance was in section 2. And 3 was to identify the compensation packages available and the challenges associated with the management of these compensation packages. So with all that said, it also included the identifying of the other forms of compensation, which in other words, I had them make recommendations to address these challenges. Now the interviews. Now the interviews were mostly based on experience, opinion, feelings, knowledge, and their input working there, because I use this data collection instrument as the interviews was basically a support to the questionnaires. These were just to seek clarification on basically some of the responses I got from the respondents, and this also helped me to identify the existence of some certain packages that existed from key persons in management. Being the interview really brought out a lot of information. It was very detailed and helped to bring out some of the ifs and whys and any doubts that I had when it came to the interview, that helped to clarify any little nuances like that. Now, the data analysis technique, I use the bivariate analysis because that needed two variables. And in this respective, my two variables were compensation and performance, right? So I was trying to see these were the two things that had a correlation, and I had to see what it was. So that is why I use the bivariate analysis. With that said, I also use the deductive approach. Now, the deductive approach is concerned with developing a hypothesis or hypotheses based on existing theory and then designing a research strategy to test the hypothesis. And like I said, my hypothesis was the effect of compensation management on employee performance. So that could be considered my hypothesis. Now, my recommendations. Now, based on the information I've gathered with employees and management of PMF, I've derived the wage bands as seen in the table. These will help to give employees a clear indication of the salary points in the pay scale. Each pay scale will allow for a $600 increment point annually, allowing the salary band to cover an employee 10-year lifespan in the same position. Now, this is what I put in place, being that, remember, prior in the previous slides, I noticed that this salary, one of the issues was with the salary bands, and the table was not effective. Now, I'm including this aspect to help. So this is a part of my recommendation. This is just a sample of the quantifiable objectives which would normally cascade from the company's overall objectives down to the employee level. So this will utilize one or it could be several of the four areas of the balance scorecard that I mentioned prior. Now, this is merely looking at the performance areas that can be included. So this is part of my recommendations, my suggestions, that you include these areas in the appraisal tool. And this is currently absent from the appraisal form being used at PMF. So I'm saying if you include this would help to develop the appraisal form. Now, my overall practicum learning. Policy improvements. These are some of the things I did at PMF that to me it really helped. It really helped to bring about, not only their standard operating procedures, but different areas of the policies that they had. And I thought that it was necessary to improve certain wording and certain thing I had to introduce. And these are the areas. One, inclusion of an employment section with standard policies such as sexual harassment, HIV and AIDS policy, substance abuse, personnel files. These, I introduced these to be included because I felt that all these were absent from the current policy. Two, additions made to attendance section to include normal days of work and respect for day of worship and the company's expectation to attend professional development activities. In other words, for you to have professional development, certain times you need to miss a day of work or two in order for the overall company objectives to be developed and to be in alignment. Three, reorganize all leave activities in one section and added the following that were not in the original document: special leave, leave of absence, and so forth. Four, development of code of ethics. And this is very important because when you don't have a code of ethics, employees don't really know how to behave, how to react, what is good action, what is bad action. You have a sense, but do you know as it relates to maybe the financial aspect, maybe the moral aspect of the company? So the code of ethics is extremely important. Next policy improvement include development of a recruitment and selection policy, addition of a cell phone usage policy under company property section, full revamp of the evaluation and performance section, and I also improved the scholarship section, limiting levels of education based on a year. Also, addition to the disaster preparedness section to assign relevant responsibility to positions available from the updated organizational chart. Inclusion of a call tree option and clearly defining how this should work, meaning the areas of who to call, when to call in case of emergency. Updated resignation, notice pay, termination, and severance to conform the labor laws as updated in 2010. And finally, the addition of a medical benefit. Now, in conclusion, employees usually do not have the whole picture of their entitlement when it comes to compensation, and this was as a result of their employers not providing them with the relevant policy manuals to read and basically educate themselves, or at times it could be their own lack of interest in reading those manuals when they're provided for them, as was the case with the employees at PMF, the place where I did my practicum. Also, there were so many positive takeaways as it relates to my practicum. My practicum experience made it all worth the challenge it presented at times, because I was able to further hone my communication and critical thinking skills. With all of my practice in the field, I found that my judgment on split-second decisions improved significantly, and I really appreciate this aspect. And these are my references.